I believe that faith and fear are polar opposites. And whether you're having faith in yourself, you're having faith in something bigger than yourself, that is the choice of optimism. And I believe that we should all live beyond our fears, that through whatever we have to do, we have to overcome our fears to truly be present with who we're meant to be. So your choice of eternal optimism is a choice of confounding fear, of refusing it, and being larger than.
A complete riff in our conversation, just freestyling and seeing how two people can have a conversation, see what comes out of it.
And you know, given the amount of painkillers that I've had to consume today, you never know what's going to come out of the conversation.
Yeah.
Fistfuls of ibuprofen.
Fistfuls of ibuprofen. So, in preparing for our conversation today, Eric, I wrote down a couple things I'm really curious about. And you've said something that just blew my mind when we were talking before. I know that you're an aviator, and it's something you're passionate about, and you could give lessons on aviation. I have my challenge coin, by the way. I've been holding that ever since the last time you challenged me with it. But I'm curious about when it comes to your...
Got one right here, buddy.
Oh! Within 6 seconds, it's right here behind me on the shelf. I'm super curious about just your relationship with crashes when it comes to aviation, because I know that you've had, you said like double-digit times that you've been in some type of flying contraption where it literally crashed. Yeah.
I mean, crash is a strong word. I've had 2 real crashes. I've had 13 engine outs in fixed wing airplanes, 5 off-field landings where I had to land at somewhere not at an airport. I've had hundreds of engine outs and paramotors, but that's no big deal. You just glide down, land wherever you are. But that's the joys of being a test pilot and trying to do different things and new things. They don't always work out the way you hope they will.
Dude, okay. So what you just said, here's my mental frame of reference. Keep in mind, my dad was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, and he was a career Air Force pilot. So I've heard from him. I never got the chance when he was alive, or never asked him this question. Here's my frame of reference. I'm thinking about that movie with DiCaprio, The Aviator. And I'm thinking about when he runs out of gas above that field, and he has to crash land into that field, and ends up the thing catches on fire. He gets severely injured, and all kinds of stuff happens. That's what I think of when I think of crash.
I chose my fields more carefully than he did. Let's put it that way. My airplanes were all flyable afterwards.
Okay.
So...
So
yeah, aside from the one that I put into a concrete block wall at 40 miles an hour and broke my back in 5 places, that one was not flyable anymore after that.
Okay, so in that instance, you know that something is happening, something is wrong. What's going through your mind from the moment you realize that something is wrong and we're going down? Like, where were you, and what was that experience?
So it's a weird story. I crashed an airplane from the outside of the airplane while being on the ground.
What?
All right. I know it's weird. All right. So it's an airplane with an engine on the back, and I was installing and rigging a smoke system, trying to get the smoke system just dialed in perfectly for aerobatics to go play. And I hand propped the airplane because the battery died. It's my 7th flight of the morning. Hand prop the airplane. It starts to come to power as I'm walking around the wing. I hear, whoa. So I start running. I sprint to the door. I get to the door. I grab the door, and the strut knocks me over. And I'm hanging onto the strut, which is connecting the wing to the fuselage. Hanging on. Between my legs is a 26-inch bush tire. And at my feet is the propeller. And I know if I let go, I'm going to curl up around my balls, and I'm going to end up in the propeller and die.
Ah!
So I thought the only logical thing you could do is just hold on, and something eventually will stop it. And so for about 15 seconds, I held on, and eventually it did a big, huge U-turn and crashed into the side of our hangar. And about 30, 40 minutes later, I woke up. And the airplane was still running above me. No one was there. It was too early in the morning. And luckily, someone came in early to work and heard the airplane running, went outside to see what was happening. And I'm there on the ground, just covered in blood. And he goes and calls the EMT. So I wake up, I stand up, I turn the airplane off, I walk into the hangar, and I sit down. And I'm just literally, all the skin at the top of my forehead's gone. So I'm just gushing blood. And the EMT show up, and they're like, "Sir, you have a head injury." And I'm like, "Yes, but my back hurts." They're like, "Sir, you have a head injury." And I'm like, "Yes, but my back hurts." So long story long, I had my dad drive me to the ER because they wouldn't listen to me. And after a few hours in a CAT scan and an MRI, they discovered that, oh, not only did I have a TBI, my back hurt. So that was C1, T5, 6, T11, and L5.
L5. Only experience I
So
have with any of that's L5, and you just named every you named up. You have a TBI, traumatic brain injury, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
And a series of, you just said down your neck and the top of your
so
back.
C1 is at the top of the neck, and then T5 and T6, T11 are all in the thoracics, kind of that mid back.
Yep.
And then the lower back. So I just basically just went, full Pokemon, got to catch them all in one go. And that was the first time I broke my back.
Wow. Well, so what happened right after that? You went to the hospital, you got all this stuff done. Did the pain start right away? Did back braces? I mean, what happens next?
Back braces. At that point, The rule of thumb was give the patient as many narcotics as possible and make them stay in bed for 6 months.
Okay.
And at that point, I'm 2 weeks before my 18th birthday. I'm ADHD as can be, love to fly. And I was able to stay in bed for about 8 days. And then I couldn't do it anymore.
8 days, dude, 6 months, 8 days? Wow.
Well, the crazy thing is I was back to teaching people to fly again 2 or 3 months later and realized that my back couldn't take it. My back couldn't take the hard landings anymore. So I took a break from flying to do more safe things flying had hurt me. So I got into racing motorcycles and surfing and broke like 31 more bones. But it definitely was an interesting time in life and one I look back on and it's really, my relationship with pain is very different than most. And before we started recording, Matt and I were talking, like I'm having a pain issue right now, where my pain level's right around a 9.5, right? I'm struggling to form sentences and breathe fully. But my relationship with pain is such that it immediately makes me feel sleepy. It makes me feel like I've not been rested, which is bollocks. My sleep score was great last night. And B, I recognize, today's a perfect example, that I can either turn inward, become the victim, go lay in bed, whimper and whine, or I can keep showing up. And I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to show up because so many of my friends didn't make it. And my brother didn't make it. My sister's a quadriplegic and she's still showing up. You get a quadriplegic on a ventilator and she calls it sit down comedy, right? Like she goes to clubs and does comedy. It's incredible. And it's funny. It's genuinely funny. So I mean, what right do I have to let my little bit of pain completely control my life or choose to be a victim to it? So every once in a while, it's good to have a good cry. But right now I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to show up for Coach Drink. You got to show up for Coach Drink. You can't help yourself.
I totally wanted to give you a pass when you said pain because I felt it. I saw it. I felt it. It takes me back to when I was in excruciating pain, and that was only a short period of my life. And you've been enduring it since 17.
It's been 21 years of fun.
21 years of fun. I love the way you framed it. Well, I guess another question, because there's people listening right now that they may not be able to publicly say that they are going to face it and not be a victim. Have you played the victim card before? And have you just kind of went inside your own self and done that?
I'm sure there was a period where I did.
Yeah.
I think that the ways that it showed up for me, I played the victim card with how much I worked. I played the victim card with how little I slept when I was in startup mode, building businesses. Mm-hmm. I would find myself like comparing scores with my co-founders or my partners. And like somehow, like if I slept less and worked more hours, I won the game. And that, I don't know why I did that. It's totally illogical. Yeah. But that is an area that I found that I was playing the victim card and eventually put a stop to it. But what a fascinating thing that our human brains do, that we need to be victim of working hard or trying to work hard as somebody else. I don't know. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I had a chip on my shoulder because I wanted some approval from certain people in my life. And I thought that the way to get there was, financial success and work hard, and I finally relearned or rewired the thinking at around 35 years of age to now at 47. It's been a great upward climb and very, very fruitful since. But I used to have that.
That concept that you just brought up, I think, is really crucial because that's been the key concept over my last 5 years is shifting the idea of what success is and finding where we find our own value, right? Like for many years, my own value was in how hard I worked. It was in how successful I was, how many dollars were in my bank account. it wasn't until I learned the beauty of self-love, the beauty of what life can be beyond that, that I found what real success was, which is a deep relationship with my wife, a deep relationship with my kids, actual time in my calendar to do whatever the heck I want to do, the ability to adventure. You know, those things matter so much more to me than an extra zero. And that's why my whole new passion is, all right, I don't work anymore. What's that look like? Okay, I have businesses, they run, they do great things for the universe, they make people happy, they change people's lives, all good things. But I don't have to be there because I had to let my ego die from the space where I walk in the hangar and everyone needs me and I know the answer to every question and I'm valuable and I matter, to I don't matter there. I'm unnecessary there. And finding peace with that death of ego, brother, that is the most beautiful journey and not easy. And that's kind of like you coach people. I've started coaching and helping other entrepreneurs kind of get free of that slavery of business and ego. But it's been a heck of a journey for me and I'm really grateful for it. But man, it's crazy.
I haven't talked about this because it just happened 2 days ago. I had a close friend call me and they are on the way to a golf trip to the U.S. Open to Pinehurst, North Carolina. U.S. Open's next week. Their golf trip is this weekend. And it's really swanky. It's nice. They're staying in a nice place. They're playing some nice courses Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And my friend can't make it anymore. Trip's paid for. And he says, Matt, will you take my place? Because Pinehurst isn't too far from where I live, hour and a half away, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he describes who's going on this trip. 2 business owners who are in financial services who maybe have close to billions of dollars of assets under management. Those are ideal coaching prospects for me that would be a substantial portion of a potential revenue and profit and, get to that house that we were talking about earlier. So the first thing that came to mind, am I a family man with a business or otherwise? The first words that came out of my mouth, knowing that this might be $250,000, just say no to it a year. I mean, this could be a really profitable engagement. I was like, you know what? I have a birthday party at 4:00 on Saturday at a pool. I promised my kids. And on Friday, I just found out that we have a 2:30 in the afternoon. Last day of school, they're having a pool party. So I got 2 pool parties for the kids. So I'm about to pass this time. I passed on Pinehurst and a lot of money for my family. And it felt really like freeing to finally, and I've just expressed this for the first time out loud, Eric. It felt great to do that. I wouldn't have done that a decade or 2 ago.
No, and I created a new rule a month ago. I was invited to Tulum with a bunch of entrepreneurs, this retreat. And the guy who invited me is really sharp. And I was like, I'm interested. Send me information. But my rule, and this is the rule I made on the spot, is I don't travel without my kids unless I'm getting paid to speak or do something that's furthering my personal goals, right? And this doesn't necessarily further my personal goals. So I skipped out on Tulum. So I'm with you. I feel you. And it's like when John Verman always asks, what your calendar reflects what your priorities are. My calendar, there's no 3:00 meetings, generally speaking, except for you, because I pick up my kids from school every day because it's important to me. I want that now 4-minute drive home because it's really special time.
Yes. For some context, and I'm always looking for a good laugh, Eric here taught me something that really transformed how our family rode in our Chevy Tahoe together. We had an issue that in the middle of the ride, sometimes a couple of my daughters would start fighting over stuff that kids fight over. So what I learned from Eric was throw a big pattern interrupt in there. Right. So what I started doing, and I learned this from Eric Farwell, the master himself, I literally took my hands up in the air and started barking like a seal. Arr, 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 arr. I started to do that, and everyone in the car just stopped what they were doing and stared at me. And one of my daughters says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm a seal. What animal are you?" And they started saying animals, and we started to laugh about it. And everyone forgot what they were arguing about in the first place for a moment, and we just became animals.
They almost always do, because what they're arguing about really doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that pattern interrupt, man, that was good. And that's why I'm constantly clad with, pirates have parrots. I have Bob Ross on my shoulder all the time as a great pattern interrupt, just to remember there's no such thing as accidents. It's all just happy little accidents. No such thing as a wrong stroke and a painting. It's happy little accidents, man.
I love that.
Yeah. It makes me smile in the midst of, there's a lot of actual physical pain right now, and we can still smile about that we've overcome something. Hopefully that there's a lesson that maybe we're helping our kids to learn, or we can show the
And I
world.
think that's the mission, right? Like if this kind of goes, I'm going deeper. Sorry. The pain that I'm carrying right now, the pain that anyone that's listening to this is carrying right now, it's the pain that we're designed to carry. It's the pain that we were put on this planet to carry, to learn from, to be beholden to honor, to hate, to feel. That pain, emotional pain, physical pain, whatever that pain is, that pain was yours to handle. Because I think of this pain, and if I were to give this pain to my wife to be free of it, not a chance in hell. To my children, not a chance in hell. I know that back pain is not something you can pass through genes, but I remember as a young dad rubbing my son's back and just having this feeling of, God, I hope he's okay. Knowing he's okay.
Yeah.
Like logical me is he's fine. But there's this thing that I realize this pain is for me to carry. And certainly there's many ways to get out of it. And there's lots of things I've done. I spend a ridiculous amount of money every year and time on trying to heal my body. And I'm much better than I was 20 years ago. But that pain's mine to carry. And it's exactly as much as I can handle. It's no more than I can handle. It's no less than I can handle. It's what I can handle. And it's a gift. It's a really sucky gift, but it is a gift to be able to be alive through this and to be able to feel into it and try to honor it instead of feeling like crap and being mad about it.
Yeah. This is a 39. You're turning 40, I guess, this year based on some of the.
I'll be 30. No, I'm turning 39. Come on now. I got time.
Oh
I got
my
time.
God, so young. I can't believe you're almost a decade younger than me. This is amazing. You look so young. For someone who's endured and overcome so much, you look so young. You still have all your hair. It's all the right color. Is this just for men, or is this like a...
It's starting to gray out a little bit. I'm actually kind of excited about the grays. It's my wife and I are on a race to who can get the most grays.
Oh, who's ahead right now? Who's winning this race?
Oh, definitely me. Definitely me.
Nice. Oh, man. By the way, for those of you who don't see, you got to check Eric out on YouTube here. He has a phenomenal beard. Like for those of us who don't grow facial hair, definitely envious.
This is all COVID. This is called, I'm going to take a 4-month road trip and just not shave. And then my wife's like, I like it. Okay, then I'm keeping it.
Hey, if wifey likey, then I keepy. Yeah, I like it. I like it
exactly.
Too.
Exactly.
Something that makes me curious is that with your relationship with pain over time, go back to 17, now to 38, the past couple decades, was there a moment when you said to yourself, you know what, I have to intentionally show up in this positive way or in this grateful way so that I don't become a victim to my own pain or my own challenges? Is there a moment or a time frame at which you started to realize this and show up a little differently?
There's many, many moments. I think that what's interesting about pain for me, and the one area that I think I still hold a bit of a victim card is in my kids. Like I every decision is made through the lens of pain, right? If I decide to go do X, right? Like I could be in Park City or wherever they're doing the front row dad's hiking this next week. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. But if I hike a 14er right now, I probably won't walk for 3 or 4 days. Like I can grind it out. I can make it up to the top of the 14er, but I'm not going to walk. I can't play with my kids rough and tumble the way I'd like to because I have to be able to show up for them tomorrow too. So that's the one area where like it really does suck. And it really does have that feeling of not being fully in control. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to be a good steward. And I think that Dustin Reachman, who is a mutual friend, he talks about stewardship and how valuable stewardship is. And I think that's I just have an extra high priority lens on how to control my inputs so I can understand what the outputs will be.
Yeah. Control the inputs so you can be more aware of what the outputs. I certainly appreciate that. I
don't know if it makes sense, but it sure sounds smart coming out of your mouth. So,
well, no, I resonate highly for this reason. Here's a real life practical application. I noticed that you track your you track your sleep. It looks like you have an aura ring, it appears.
Oh, yeah.
So I've had mine for about 3.5 years, and my wife's had hers for a little bit over a year. And recently hers resilience level, by the way, she has the new upgraded one. So she gets all this cool stuff that I don't have from 3.5 years ago. So now I'm stuck in. I got to spend like $300 to get another one. But anyways, she was tracking her resilience score, and it got to the lowest score you could possibly get. I think it's limited, right? And we started to look at just the series of things that have been really challenging recently for us. And she changed her inputs. We started to focus specifically on the time to sleep, the time to wake up, and the exercise, the nutrition. And most importantly, I think this might be it, Eric, is we chose to let go of feeling everyone else's feelings for them and let go of I have to be responsible and own their feelings. This is hard for her. She's a high empath, right? So
super hard,
very difficult. She chose.
Where is she on the Enneagram?
3.
Okay.
I'm a 7. She's a 3. Or it's,
I'm a social 7.
What is a 7 again? Remind me, because on our very first date ever, this is the subject of our first date. She just taken it and went through a training program about it 12 years ago, and this is our first date over a bottle of wine or two.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
7s like to have fun. You definitely strike me as a 7. That makes total sense.
Okay. And what's a 3? Do you know what a 3 is?
I don't remember. My wife's a 2, so I don't have to know what a 3 is. I'm lucky.
Yes, and I don't use the Enneagram in my business, so I'm not completely versed in it. But yes, she is someone that would, as a high empath, she would own everyone else's feelings and see how she could please them or help them or serve them and not make anybody feel bad. And she has let go of that through self-study, through together working through Michael Singer's Surrender Experiment workbook, workshop, through just practicing our breathing together. She's done an amazing job. And we've tracked her aura ring for the last 2 months. And now she is up to the highest level of resilience. And her scores every night are optimal. She gets the crown, like 85 plus on both the sleep and on the readiness. And it's because she has practiced, letting go and accepting the things out of her control and not taking everyone else's feelings onto her. This is incredibly difficult for an empath, and she's figured out how to do it. It just goes to show you
it's been one of my biggest personal journeys too. It is. I grew up very much in a household where I had to feel everyone else's feelings so I could make sure that I stayed safe and keep my siblings safe. Mm-hmm. And so that empathic feeling, to shed yourself of it, it is almost like shedding your safety. Yeah. So props to her. That's incredible.
Yeah. And she let go of it from the lens of she was feeling it for all of our children. So that is makes it even triply hard. So she's done great on her relationship with her body and with pain, whether it's emotional pain or just her body starting to kind of shut down because she's taking it all in. So how did you learn that as a high empath yourself with the mental, emotional part of it and the physical pain? Like you're like doctor of pain. Like you've figured out how to manage, deal, accept on different levels.
This guy right here helps. So there's all kinds of little tools. These tools like the physical tool of a tennis ball that you throw behind your back.
Oh,
right. Yes. There you go. For pressure points. I sleep on those about 6 hours a night. So there's lots of physical tools for things we do for the physical pain, but the most empowering thing, most incredible thing that I've learned over the last 5 years are the emotional tools of how to guarantee that you maintain regulation even when you're surrounded by people who are incredibly dysregulated, having a hard experience, whatever it may be. Okay. And this started with my wife. Let me rephrase. I learned this with other men first.
Okay.
And I think that's super crucial because you don't want to learn a new tool and then try to practice it with your spouse when you don't know how to use it yet, because you're probably going to screw it up. Right.
True.
So learning to, especially if your relationship's strained, and ours was terrible 5 years ago. I mean, we were in the worst possible place. And so to fast forward to doing tons of personal work on both of our sides, trying to figure out how to show up and be the people we wanted to be, all the meditation, all the different coaching, all the different, mentors and leaders and groups and circles. incredible things and energy work and emotion code and NET. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. The first tool and the one that I use the most frequently is to create, and she uses it for me as well. I have to make sure I honor that, to create space. The moment that I see that something is happening that's triggering her, to immediately stop what I'm doing, create some posture, hand over my heart, and just breathe. Lock eye, left eye to left eye, looking at each other. And I can just bear witness to her experience. She knows I won't reply because that was always a trigger point. I'd reply because my brain works really fast. Her brain works at a different speed, right? So I just don't respond. And now I can let her experience what she needs to experience. And if I start to feel that tickle, like I'm getting triggered too, maybe I'll have to leave the room for a little while. But generally, I can show up for her as an empath, as someone who feels, and I can be present with her experiences, but I'm not offering solutions. And unless she asks for it, I'm not even speaking. And that works.
Wow.
And it's like the most powerful tool ever. And I don't know why they don't teach that in premarital counseling, because if you can see your spouse, or your spouse can see you when you're upset and you're in this place where you're safe to feel whatever you need to feel, and you know that you're not going to trigger them or mess things up or whatever it may be, it's beautiful. And our relationship is so much better for it.
Yeah, I could have used that 10 years ago when I was highly emotional about being right. I'm doing all of what I'm doing in business for the family. It's all for the family, even though it is to satisfy my own ego and my need for acceptance and my need for certainty and control, right? But what you just shared right there, my equivalent of that nowadays is when I start to feel myself getting triggered, I simply step up, I stand up, I take a lap around the lower level of our home, and I come back. And normally it takes me about that amount of time to kind of regulate and process through my emotion. And I do that. I do that through the breathing techniques that I learned at the Front Row Dads Summit on Emotional Intelligence 2.5 years ago with Jim Detmer. And that was it, to pause, acknowledge, breathe, and accept that this is happening right now, and let it go. It's going to be great. Somehow, some way, this is going to turn out great.
And there's so many cool tools like that, whether it's learning to control your breath, which is the basis of self-control, which my whole life, everyone told me I needed more self-control, but no one ever told me what self-control was until I started learning meditation, which I was very angry that no one had ever told me. I thought, self-control was this invisible thing that I had no clue how to actually attain it. And it's so obtainable. It's so easy to obtain. Preston Smiles, I was just in his men's group this spring, and one of the pieces of homework was that you had to do a primal scream at least once a week. Like, let some of that energy out. We're men. We have this energy, this primal energy. Let it out.
Yes.
Be a part of nature. Go out and scream in the woods. And I'm like, man, that is bizarre. And I can dig it. I'll get behind this. And then I had another one too. One of my gals, she's a rolfer, which is like massage that hurts way more than massage should.
Yes,
it's the number one thing that's helped my body. I love my rolfing ladies; they're incredible. And we were talking, and my neck and my throat were so locked. And she said, "Is there something you're not saying? Like, do you feel like you need to express and you're not saying? Because it feels like you don't have a voice." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I talk a lot." I said, "Well, but I also hold a lot of space." And like a lot of times, the things that I want to say in response that really would not be productive, like the terrible things you want to say to your wife when she's losing her mind, and you're like sitting there holding space. She's like, "Eric, you have to say that somewhere. Go get in your car, roll the windows up, and scream out all the things that you're not saying, because your body is closing off around your windpipe. It literally feels like you have a hand around your neck because you've been holding yourself back so hard." And I did. And it helps.
Interesting.
I'm glad that there's no recorders in my truck. Let's just put it that way, because I was pretty vicious.
Fair statement. And then two thoughts to that. One, I did a primal scream on May 21st at around 11:04 a.m. When I had a hole-in-one on a golf course in a golf tournament with a client a couple weeks ago. And literally, we stood there on the tee and just yelled at the top of my lungs, kind of like I do at some of the Front Row Dads retreats when they say it's okay to yell. And I just yell an obscenity at the loud as I can at the top of my lungs. I did that, and I had 3 other guys screaming with me. It was awesome. So that was pretty cool. And then I think the second thing, I play a game, because I like to consider just about everything to be a game, right? You know, kind of like Groundhog's Day is one of my favorite movies because you get to start over every day and try the same thing over and over and get better at it, or the way that you process it, you can enjoy it differently. So the game I'm talking about is called Alternate Universe. So if I could sense a client as something that's really hard for him right now, let's play the Alternate Universe game. You know, and we're in the alternate universe right now, a safe place. Just let it all out, whatever's on your heart, on your mind. And I hear some of the most interesting things. I do it too. Right. So some of the things that might be happening in my car, you know, might be, what the heck were you thinking? I'm like shaking. Why? I can't believe it. All you got to do is this. And that's like my evil or my dark side.
Yeah.
I hear something.
Oh.
I
see something.
Oh, I have a daughter here that has showed up. Hello.
My iPad back.
You have your iPad back? Yes, I will give it back to you in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes.
Oh, I know.
She's going to go get it. Go get
adorable.
it. They know to come when I'm recording a podcast, and that's when they come and ask for the things that normally they're not going to get an affirmative response. They're going to get a discussion.
Right. Exactly. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Oh, man, this is the way. Don't get me started. Okay, so another thought about pain. You mentioned earlier that you had taken a lot of ibuprofen today for pain. You know, when I was going through my pain part, I remember that they gave me a prescription of Oxycontin, Oxycodone, whatever, the Oxy word, the one that's like big in the shows nowadays about people getting addicted and whatnot. And
Oxycontin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was afraid of that because this concept of addiction, I think that you might have it, but you don't know. And if you don't know, then maybe you're addicted. You don't know. And I didn't want to try it because the one time I took it, I was so unclear in my thinking, I couldn't respond to things with my normal thinking. So I had to, in my mind, Eric, I had to say, I'm willing to accept the pain because what I get when I accept the pain is I can still be clear-headed, even though it's painful.
Right.
I still get to clear head. So I wonder about your relationship with narcotics or with painkillers, because you are sharp, my friend. You might be one of the top 3 sharpest, quickest wit, super intelligent humans that I know. And I look up to you for that. You're like a mentor for that.
Girls.
I do say that to a lot of chicks, yes. But you're the dude. So I'm curious, have you ever sacrificed your mental clarity at the altar of, I just need relief from this pain for a while? Or how does that relationship for you?
So my parents were both addicts, and my first 8 days, I took the pills they recommended, and I was in a dark room, and I just remember being angry all the time. It was Oxycontin, it was a couple of different muscle relaxants, and I said no more. And so I stopped taking them and probably did terrible things to my liver with ibuprofen and Aleve for years.
Okay.
And then the added element of this is I'm a pilot. And so I can't take Oxycontin, Oxycodone, hydrocodone, and be a pilot. It goes on my record. They would pull my medical. The last time I had a prescription for oxycodone, it was a 30-day prescription. It lasted me almost a year. No, it was 10 months. 10 months it lasted.
Okay.
And of course, this is in Florida, and this is in the time when everyone's cracking down. So they wouldn't even give me more unless I went to see a pain specialist. And so I was like, well, I'm good then. I'll just use ibuprofen.
Okay.
There are some drugs so 10 years ago, I guess 11 years ago now, I was flying a paramotor and had a big equipment malfunction, and I plunged 325 feet out of the sky in less than 3 seconds, hit the roof of a house. If I'd been 2 feet lower, I'd be dead. If I'd been 2 feet higher, I'd be fine. Skip off the roof of the house, land, break my back again, L3, L5. And I did not want painkillers. So I get to the hospital. They're like, do you want some painkiller? And I'm like, no, because I remember how terrible my experience had been. Like and at this point I have a wife, I've got 2 kids, one's a toddler. And I want to be present with them. And my wife's with me in the hospital. We get transferred to another hospital for, critical care or whatever, because I fell from such a height, they had to move me. And that night, at 1 o'clock in the morning, this happened at 7:20 in the morning. At 1 o'clock in the morning, they finally decided to start addressing the giant, I don't even know what you call it, the wound on my calf, which is where I slid up the asphalt shingles. So I just have asphalt rash. And so they take the wire brush and they're scraping the asphalt out of my leg. 17 hours later, And so at that point I said, yes, please give me a half dose of whatever you have.
Yes.
and they gave me morphine. It was the first time I'd ever been on morphine. And my wife and I at that point had been married for almost 5 years. And we still say it was probably the best date of our life because it's the one time we'd been together where I had no pain. And we like hung out in the hospital bedroom, and we had a great time. And like, so I could definitely see the attraction, which is why I'm so committed to doing the work that I have to do to try to mend my body as best as I can between kinesiological chiropractic, rolfing, energy work. There's all kinds of different things that I've tried, and many have worked very well. And many of them have been, like John Vroman sent a dry needling guy to my house. Great gift. They stick an acupuncture needle into your muscle and they stir it like they're making soup.
Yeah.
Not fun. I felt like I was in a car accident the next day and I didn't feel any relief. But I keep trying because I want to get back to that place where pain isn't ever present, because God, life is really beautiful. And if you live a life where you're not in daily pain,
Yes.
like what a blessing to be given that opportunity to like decide to go for a run or go down for a hike or whatever it may be, like I'm envious and grateful for the people who get to have that. I guess I'm not really envious. I'm grateful. Let's just stick with grateful.
I've already had a good cry today about this. I was talking to someone a little earlier about the zipline accident and about the excruciating pain, and it would do anything to make it go away in that moment. And now to be someone that was able to go through that and go through the conversation the surgeon said, you may never walk again, and to go through a wheelchair and to go through rehab and now be able to run a marathon and play scratch golf again. I am incredibly grateful every day. And to hear you say that, it's really cool to hear, because so many times people are just walking around entitled and taking it for granted. And every single day, man, you grabbed the tennis ball. You grabbed the ball. I grabbed the ball. You grabbed it for a different reason. I thought we were grabbing it for the same reason. I keep this with me every day to remind myself of how lucky I am to be able to walk again and still be the tallest guy in the room, because my identity was built on my height for a long period of time. And when you're in a chair, I wasn't the tallest anymore, and I wasn't playing golf anymore the same ways, right? So, yeah, I'm just grateful every day too, man.
It's funny. After our first conversation 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I bought a bag of those smiley face squish balls because I was like, that is the best representation, and I love it. And my kids got them all in their stocking for Christmas.
Yes. Every one of my daughters has, they all have an egg carton, and they bogarted my freaking little smiley face balls. I had a pack of like 100 of them. I come in here, like half of them are gone. They each took all of them. They wrote down the names of all their classmates. They put them in the egg carton, and now they carry around their classmates in egg cartons with little smiley faces on it. It's like the cutest thing. And I'm walking around the house this morning, and I see like 3 of them are now under my table over here on the vent. It's my kids' names of the ball. The 3 of them are right there on the vent. It's very sweet.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. It's amazing, these little bits of connection that you don't anticipate, right? It's like, all right.
Yeah.
They see what's important to me. They want to make it important to them. And it's actually on the shelf behind me here, this Lego creation. My son gave it to me for Father's Day. We waited, of course, 6 months to put it together because he's too busy. I'm too busy. Always excuses. We finally built it together. He said, Dad, can we put it in your background? And obviously we just moved into a new house, so my background's not set up yet, but like it lived in my background. And then we were moving into this new house last week. And I said, well, here's the Lego creation. You could put it in the Lego bin. And he's like, oh no, Dad, then we'd lose the pieces. I said, oh, do you want me to keep it in my background? Yes, please. Oh, yeah, buddy. You got it. Cool. You got it. Anything you would like. Absolutely. He's 11, man. He still comes for his 10-second hugs every night and every morning. All right. I'll take it.
Take it, man. I'll take it. Time is precious, and every one of those magic moments is waiting to happen if we have our lens open for it. And you do. That's one of the reasons I love you. You've always got the lens open, even with all the challenges that people don't see, like the duck underwater going 1,000,000 miles an hour in pain. Still,
I'll tell you what, what's kind of interesting, I don't know how you feel about this, but like I've built my life, for so many years, ego was driving. I was trying to strive to make enough money to do this, to do that, like to build a company. And now I've done all of that, and those companies are still doing their thing. And frankly, I found myself last October really bored. I was like, I don't have to do anything anymore. Now what? Like, what's the next chapter? What's the next stage? What's the next piece? And I think the next piece for me, like real legacy, is how do we give it away, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who gave the quote, but once you discover your gift, their whole purpose in life is to give it away. And I've been blessed with quite a few random gifts, and whether they're pain or they're the ability to scale businesses or the ability to get out of businesses that I don't have to work in anymore, whatever those are, like now I just want to share it. And so I love, talking with you on podcasts or in person, like any way I can share it and help inspire people to get away from their own predetermined limiting beliefs. Because so many of us just believe that we're not capable of X, Y, or Z, and it's simply not true. And that's probably why you're a coach.
Yeah, well, so you learn somehow to let go of ego. You've optimized and found a way to be successful in business to the place that you don't have to have what many would consider the traditional job anymore. And at that point, if you've been satisfying this need of business building and growth and doing all that for so long, and now there's no more need for that, and you're bored, at some point, people get to a point where they start to look inside and find what's the next thing. And your next thing is to give it away. And I'm curious because so many people I see who become successful in business, their next thing is hedonism. Their next thing is just go buy every expensive thing on the planet and status is it. Some might even go and, just kind of get into their own and just go build a nuclear bunker and prepare for war. I don't know. I mean, everyone has their own thing they love to do. I'm curious, how did you land on give it away as opposed to any other thing in the world you could do, Eric? Why that?
So I've done kind of all of those things also, and they all sound great. They all sound like a lot of fun. I'd love to have a nuclear bomb shelter. I'd love to have a $12 million house like my neighbors literally on all three sides of me have. Those all sound great. But more important than that was a great relationship with my kids and my wife. And that meant moving to a place where we had community, because community was what we were missing most. Putting them in a school where they have great friends, prioritizing living in a place where their friends can come over on their bicycles to hang out. We've sacrificed a lot to build our life in such a way that our family nucleus is the number one priority. And certainly I am addicted to all things that go vroom. If you ask my wife, there's the number of vehicles that I almost buy is comical. I've owned over 100 cars, 54 airplanes, dozens of motorcycles, boats, and I enjoy all of them because it's like, I was never good at sports growing up. Like, you're tall and you're good at sports. I'm tall and I'm not good at sports. Right. But I can fly, I can drive, I can ride, I can race. I'm good at all those things. So, there is a little hedonism there. There is a little, honoring of me.
Yes.
And there will be a Ferrari in the garage at some point. But right now the priority is how do we give back to our kids? And if I can't take all three kids in the Ferrari, why buy it?
Yes. Which Ferrari, by the way, is like your dream one? If you have one that's your favorite, if you go that,
man, I'm still kicking myself. And I think it was January, February of 2020. I'm in Palm Beach. I was down there for a doctor visit, and I've been talking about it with my wife for a while. I was like, I think I want to buy a nice car. She's like, do it. You've earned it. Like, you've worked really hard. You should do it. So we went to the Ferrari dealership, and they had this deep burgundy 812 Superfast, which is the dumbest name in the world. But the dealer just threw me the keys, and I got in it. And my wife was standing in front of the windshield, and I started it. And she said that my face, because it's a V12, and this one had a great exhaust system on it. And I don't know why, but it's a standard car. It's not like the engines in the back. It's not a racy car. It's a grand touring car. And I don't know why I didn't logic in my head what it's going to sound like. I was just like, oh, it's going to sound like my car starting up. No, it sounds like a million angry trombones screaming at the top of their lungs. And it's like the most epic sound ever. And my wife says, your inner child just looked so happy. But I didn't buy it that moment because it was, it's a big purchase. I'd never spent $300,000 on me before. And I wish I had, because the same car during the COVID bubble got resold with double the miles for almost $800,000. Oh. So I wish I'd bought it and driven the piss out of it for 6 months and then sold it. But, to answer the question you asked previously as to why I'm giving it away, because I recognize how deeply empty, alone, and lost I was, how I believed that my relationship with my wife was okay and we would survive until it wasn't anymore, how I didn't know my kids. I would go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, get home at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I would not see them for weeks at a time because they were asleep the only times I was home.
Yeah.
And now the gift that I've been given is this opportunity to repurpose, because all my businesses are purpose-based. Like, you have to have purpose first. If you're building a business to make money, you've lost the plot. It will fail. You will burn out. There's 100%. Money is the byproduct of doing what you were meant to do. Money just happens to me because I'm very passionate about the things I want to do, and I just keep doing them. And all of a sudden, someone's willing to pay me $5,000 an hour to teach them how to do what I do. Okay, why? Well, because he's done it. Like, I've done this. I know how to do it. So people are like throwing money at me. I was on a podcast, and all of a sudden I have clients. And I'm like, I haven't consulted in 20 years. That's a whole past life when I was in the marketing business. But like, it's really fascinating to see how different my life is now than it was 5 years ago. And I want everyone to be able to have that kind of transformation, because when I get off this call, I'm going to go out and hang out with my kids, and my 13-year-old and I already have a date to play video games together tonight because we haven't in kind of like a week or two. And he's like, Dad, I have to get some wins with you. Yeah, man, we're going to go pwn some noobs. It's going to be great.
Awesome. What game is your game of choice? By the way, I cannot wait to go play soccer with my kids when we get off this call. So this is, in fact, we're going to make a move to get off this call here in just a couple minutes, so we can go play. Sincerely.
No, Call of Duty Warzone is what we play. We play Warzone together. We have a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have for 3 years. It's been a joy.
Eric, can we follow you? Can we reach out to you? How do we find out more, or just learn from you if there's a website or social media, anything that you want to share?
Yeah, I'm happy to chat with anybody. I'm the only Eric Farewell in the world, as far as I know. So Eric, EricFarewell.com. I have a book on Amazon. If you Google my name, it's some life stories of ways I got this pain and ways I've worked my way around it, including some pretty crazy stories of a motorcycle ride to Alaska that somehow ended up with Sean Penn drinking out of fish bowls in a movie set. So
what?
It's random.
Well, Eric, I like to ask the last couple questions before we wrap things up of every guest, and I like to ask the same ones to you. I got a couple zingers in here that are different, just because I know that you like to think quick, and I want to test you. So here's a couple softballs for you. If you had to recommend 1 to 3 books that have had an impact on you, what might be 1 to 3 recommendations in books?
The Eternal Optimist by Matt Drinkin. Yeah. That yellow one about early mornings. I'm just kidding. I honestly, to be genuine, the book that I have gifted the most in the last 5 years is the book I've gifted the most ever. I read this book on audio. By the time I got halfway through it, I bought a copy from my wife. I bought a copy for my dad. I bought a copy for my brother. I bought a copy for every male employee I had. And I said, and all the female employees. And it is the single most powerful transformational book for me. And that was No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, which I live in Austin, Texas, and I got really blessed. I recommended that book to a friend who got on Dr. Glover's newsletter list. And he texted me. He goes, hey, Dr. Glover's going to be in town on Sunday. You want to go meet him? So now Dr. Glover and I are friends, and I'm helping him with his project. We have a meeting next week. So I'm consulting for Dr. Glover. I'm like, how cool full circle is this? Like, what an incredible guy. So that's the number one book. There's literally hundreds more. I think reading is the number one gift that we can give our children, and the number one gift we can give ourselves. And so I read generally 2 to 4 hours a night. And I'm constantly consuming content because I think that's the best way to level up.
Awesome. What a great nugget for those listening. Great nugget. Number 2 is, let's talk about music. Is there a song, a genre, an artist that really lights you up and just brings you inspiration or joy?
For a long time, I said that the only music I didn't like was polka. And then I was training our air show team, and we were flying the world's largest air shows in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So we were training in southern Wisconsin, and the only radio station that came in was polka. And I now like polka, which is weird. But I would say that the one that's most moving for me right now, I just went and saw Jacob Collier in concert. And it is probably the best concert I've ever been to, because they call him the Mozart of our generation. He has 5 Grammys at the age of 23. The guy can write music. He sings, he harmonizes. His stuff is crazy. It's very experimental. It's not really my vibe. Like, I don't like the album, his latest one.
Okay.
But live, it all makes sense. It's like, holy crap. And I wasn't even on drugs. Like, I think if on drugs, probably would have made it better, but unbelievably great. Unbelievable artist. Cannot recommend Jacob Collier enough.
Fantastic. Okay. Here's the different question. I would ask you, What does the Front Row Dads mean to you, and why are you a part of that group?
Oh, Front Row Dads. I started going to conferences and masterminds when I was 13 years old, tagging along with my dad.
Okay.
By the age of 16, I was speaking because I'd been selling airplanes on this new thing called the internet. And I was a high schooler selling airplanes and no one understood what I was doing. So made for good speeches. I've been a part of so many different communities. It's kind of insane. I spent 7 years in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. I've done lots of different things to try to find the right cadre of humans. And Front Row Dads Live, I'd been a member for about 7 months. I walked into the hotel. I saw all these people there. And after 3 days of being with them, I realized there was not one out of 100 plus men that I wouldn't go on vacation with, that I didn't want to have a deep relationship with, that didn't believe in the same thing. We may not agree on religion. We may not agree on politics, but we all can agree that we have to work on us so we can show up for our families. And that prioritization of work on you, heal you, bless that inner child that you have seen neglected throughout your entire life, and find other men to do it with. And it is just magic. I moved my family halfway across the country because of Front Row Dads. You know, I'm in a community now where the quality of men that I'm around every day are the best guys you could possibly imagine. This is why I keep trying to convince you to move here, because it's that good.
Keep talking, baby. Just keep doing it. Maybe one of these days we'll see how it turns out. And to the next question, 2 to go. This question, you mentioned John Vroman earlier, the guy who founded Front Row Dads. So we're not going to talk about the dry needling experience that he offered for you. Thank you for the gift, John. But what I would like to ask you, what's a story that you can share with the public about John that just warms your heart, makes you smile, maybe makes you laugh? Just something warm about John.
Man. Well, we'll go to actual warm. I love John. I tell him, and I've told many people, John's a unicorn. John is a 1 in a billion person. The personality type, his ability to connect, his ability to really be present and listen to you and ask deep questions. John is the only person who has ever asked me what my pain felt like. Not my wife, not a doctor, no. He's the only person who asked in a way that was so genuine that I was like, oh shit, I have to think about. I just cursed. I actually have to think about what this answer is. But
okay.
John has a distinct inability to have a meeting. Like, it's almost impossible. He can do it. If you plan it out 30 to 60 days in advance, he can have a meeting where he's in his office and you're actually having a meeting. Otherwise, you're going for a hike, you're going for a sauna, you're going for a cold plunge. There is some other activity going on that's keeping his little 7 happy, because I swear to you, we probably had 30 meetings last year. And I think that 4 of them were over Zoom and like in a business-like manner. And that's not to say anything negative about him. He has made me sweat more and freeze more than any other man has, and I love it.
Awesome. Okay, last question here, Eric, to wrap it up, and you have the final word. When we talk about being on the Eternal Optimist podcast, what does Eternal Optimist mean to you?
The idea of eternal optimism is deeper than just the word optimist. It's deeper than eternity, right? It's the unflinching, uncompromising, unwilling to shift. No matter what hits you in the face, you choose joy, you choose gratitude, you choose optimism. And that's a statement about Matt Drinkin. That's who you are. It's who I know you to be. And what I think is so beautiful about your brand and your podcast, your book, is that you really create new avenues for people to see themselves, to recognize that they can choose optimism, they can choose positivity. And we could go on for another hour, but I believe that faith and fear are polar opposites. And whether you're having faith in yourself, you're having faith in something bigger than yourself, that is the choice of optimism. And I believe that we should all live beyond our fears, that through whatever we have to do, we have to overcome our fears to truly be present with who we're meant to be. So your choice of eternal optimism is a choice of confounding fear, of refusing it, and being larger than. So thanks for having me.